afternoon. My name is Bonita. I'm from the West End Branch Public Library. Today I'd like to read to you the autobiography of Cicely Tyson, Just As I Am. Just as I am is my truth. It is me, plain and unvarnished, with the glitter and garland set aside. In these pages, I am indeed Cicely, the actress who has been blessed to grace the stage for 6 decades. Yet, I am also the church girl who once rarely spoke a word. I am the teenager who sought solace in the verses of the old hymn for which this book is named. I am a daughter and a mother, a sister and a friend. I am an observer of human nature and the dreamer of audacious dreams. I am a woman who is hurt as immeasurably as I have loved, a child of God, divinely guided by his hand. And here, in my 9th decade, I am a woman who at long last has something meaningful to say. Chapter 1, The Vow. I know instantly whether I should take a role. If my skin tingles as I read the script, then it is absolutely something I must do. But if my stomach churns, I do not touch the project, because if I did, I'd end up on a psychiatrist's couch. Either my spirit can take the story or it cannot, and my senses have never misled me. That is how I knew with unequivocal assurance that I was meant to act in Sounder, the 1972 film about a loving family struggle during the Depression. What I didn't know is how Sounder's ride would carry me toward a profound purpose, one spawned by comments from strangers. Part 3, Bountiful. We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. Quote from Gwendolyn Brooks. Chapter 22, A Strong Harvest. For everything there is a season, the Bible teaches us. There's a time to mourn, as I did greatly after Miles's death, and a time to laugh, a habit that has always been my sanity. There's a time to sow, as my dear parents once did, into the soil of my young life, and a time to pluck the harvest. In these years now, my crop is plentiful. I marvel daily at its abundance. The yield, sweet and ripe, has brought unexpected fruit. Riches I've never dreamed would come my way. Among them is a school in New Jersey. I never set out to have a school. Sometime around 1994, a sweet woman by the name of Laura Trimmings called my agent. Miss Trimmings was then serving as principal of Vernon L. Davey Middle School in East Orange, New Jersey. District officials wanted to rename the school, as well as to expand into a high school at a new location. Their bold vision to eventually demolish the vacant East Orange High School and in its place construct a 300,000 square foot campus with state-of-the-art facilities, a school where students could rigorously pursue the arts while also undertaking traditional academic disciplines. The new campus, cradled between Walnut and Wining Street, would include a television studio, an 800-seat theater, and music rehearsal rooms. The school's name had not yet been chosen, which is what prompted Mrs. Trimmings' call. The board would like to name the school after Miss Tyson, she told my agent. By this time, I'd moved on from Bill Haber and was working with Irwin Moore. When Irwin relayed her proposition, my jaw grazed the floor. Why on earth would anyone want to name a New Jersey school after me? I said. I've never lived there, nor did I know anything about partnering with the school. I told him to thank Miss Trimmings for her kind offer, but to decline it. That Miss Trimmings was persistent. Over the next year, she rang my agent again and again, pleading to talk directly to me. I finally relented, mostly to get her off our backs. On the phone, she passionately made her case. I paused and drew in a breath. You know, I told her, Dionne Warwick went to school in East Orange, and so did John Amos. Why don't you ask one of them? She chuckled. Miss Tyson, the board has voted unanimously more than once, and they want the school to bear your name, she said. That's why you haven't been able to get rid of me. I told her I'd give it some more thought and get back to her that week. I did, and the answer for all initial reasons remained no. Around that time, I had lunch with my cousin Emily, the one my sister is named after. She's a professor at Montclair State University and the daughter of my father's eldest brother, George. I told this principal had been badgering me for months. When I mentioned the school's location, she put down her water glass. Listen, she said, you really ought to let them go ahead with that. Why? I asked. She'd explained that when my father had first arrived in the United States from Nevis in 1919, he'd moved in with my Uncle George and his family in East Orange, a fact I hadn't known up until then. And you want to hear something else? She went on. The home they lived in was 6 houses down from the campus. I stared at Emily, stunned at this piece of family history that somehow escaped my ear. An awareness rippled through me. Oh my Lord, I'm supposed to complete the cycle. I said to myself, I meant to pour back into the community that nourished my father. I instantly knew that I had to get involved, just that I'd always known when I should take a role. My skin tingles, my pulse quickens, my soul just says, Amen. Thus began a divine assignment that to this moment continues. On November 5th, 1995, the Cicely Tyson Community School of Performing and Fine Arts flung open its doors. Then 14 years later, when the state-of-the-art campus was at last completed, Mrs. Trimmings and I hosted a gala that felt like a family reunion. So many of my longtime friends, my extended family, joined me in celebrating. Oprah attended. Please let me know exactly when it is because I want to be there, she'd been telling me for months. And true to her word, she was there with bells on. Angela Bassett and Lynn Whitfield also honored me with their presence, as did Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson, Susan L. Taylor, Soledad O'Brien, B.B. Winans, and too many other dear ones to list. John Corzine, then the New Jersey governor, was on site, along with David Dinkins, the former New York City mayor. The grand unveiling of this new campus, complete with a ribbon-cutting ceremony, set the table for a feast I'm still savoring. From the beginning, the school's motto, hoisted the bar heavenward. We aim high, we soar high, is our creed. My intention is to have every student who strides our halls, every one or more than the 700 lives we have the privilege of imprinting, surpass all limitations, real and perceived. There is nothing our children cannot achieve when they're given the proper tools and nurturing, starting with the belief in their own brilliance, despite social messages to the contrary. I don't simply want to reach these young folks and reach for excellence. I want them to breathe excellence, swallow it, allow it to saturate their lungs. With that goal in mind, our administrators and teachers are carefully chosen. We bring in only those who see our children through the lens of their full potential. I'll forever remember Daryl, a delightful young man with a warm smile. He was as sharp as a jackknife, an honor student respected by his peers, and yet there was not a trace of arrogance in his manner. In the months leading up to graduation, he applied to multiple schools and was accepted by all of them, including the #1 historically Black men's college, Morehouse. Though he was admitted and yearned to attend, he didn't receive a scholarship. "Let me tell you something," I told Carl Foster, my assistant then. "That young man is going to Morehouse. Do you hear me?" That's all there is to it. Over the weekend, we both made calls to everyone we knew who was affiliated with Morehouse. The admissions team asked for more of his particulars, and within a week, we received word. This is the kind of young man we want here. An administrator told us, explaining that he'd awarded a scholarship. Yet another challenge soon emerged. Daryl's mother wasn't keen on his moving to Atlanta. I've never heard what his father thought, but particularly since Daryl was his mom's eldest, her heartstring, she wanted him to study locally. "You better talk with her, Carl," I said, laughing. "That woman does not want me to knock on her door." Obviously, it was the parents' choice where to send their child, not mine, and that had to be respected. Yet with everything in me, I longed to see Daryl take flight. I knew attending Morehouse would raise his shoulders as it broadened his horizons to soar toward what's possible. You must believe and leave behind what's comfortable. Thanks to Carl's persuasive lobby, the parents ultimately agreed to send Daryl to Morehouse. Carl even became his mentor. In fact, because Daryl's mother and father weren't able to make the trip to Atlanta, Carl accompanied Daryl to campus, helped him settle in, and introduced him to some top administrators. 4 years later, Daryl graduated with honors, and I flew down to celebrate his accomplishment. Squelching tears, I embraced him like he was my son, as he had come to feel like to me. And you know what else? Daryl's younger siblings also were inspired by his achievement, and they made plans to attend college. Even his mother went back to school and earned her diploma. That's the power of education. It expands one's vision, and in so doing, it lifts entire families and communities. When you witness better, you often want better. Tyler Perry is another one of my jewels. Hardly a week goes by that the two of us aren't on the phone cackling about one thing or another, swapping stories and scuttlebutt. Let me tell you something about Tyler. Long before he arrived in 1969, New Orleans Providence had already hewn his path. Born into poverty and abuse, but refusing to be defined by either, Tyler struggled through his early years. Around 1990, he moved to Atlanta with the hope of becoming a playwright, but he instead found himself living in his car after being evicted from his apartment on Sylvan Road. Still, he kept dreaming. While watching Oprah's show in 1991, Tyler heard that journaling could be cathartic. That epiphany wrapped his fingers around a pen, and before long, he'd filled a diary with letters to himself, creating a compendium that eventually became the basis for the play, I Know I've Been Changed. He poured both the spirit and his life savings into that maiden production, and soon ended up on the streets again. A lot has changed since for Tyler, and all of his high for higher purpose. In 2006, when he opened Tyler Perry Studios, he became the first African American to ever own a major film production company. Then in 2019, he took another giant leap forward when he reopened his studio as a 15,000 square foot symbol of fortitude on 330 acres in Southwest Atlanta. Along Georgia State Route 66, A green exit sign now bears his studio name alongside another for Sylvan Road, the street for which he was once evicted. Tyler and I worked together on 2005's Diary of a Mad Black Woman. He now tells me he had the shakes before asking me to play Myrtle, mother of Helen, portrayed by the gifted Kimberly Elise. And incidentally, moviegoers began believing Kimberly was my real-life daughter. She isn't, but even I see our resemblance. When Kimberly was first cast, she said, "No, Tyler, Miss Cicely and I have always wanted to work together. What do you think about having her play Myrtle?" Tyler loved the idea, but it intimidated him. He mentioned it to Reuben Cannon, the producer. "I don't think she'll do it," Reuben told him. "She's very selective." But he pushed past his nerves and called me anyway. And I asked him to send me the script. To his astonishment, and in line with my goose pimples, I answered yes. After filming wrapped, Tyler and I stayed in touch. In 2006, he invited Sidney Poitier and me on a long transatlantic flight to Johannesburg, South Africa, to attend the splendid unveiling of the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls. That gave us plenty of time to kick off our shoes and connect. I shared some of my best stories as a wide-eyed Tyler listened, laughing hardest at my skirmish with Liz Taylor. Our friendship has blossomed from there, and so far, we've done 6 films together, and he's the world's greatest tipper. When he heard how little I was paid for Sounder and the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, his mouth fell open. From then on, he decided to double, and sometimes even triple or quadruple my asking price for any role he requested that I play. He padded my pay in 2012 when he hired me to portray his mother in the late crime drama Alex Cross. In one scene, his character turns his back on me and walks away. And faster than you can spell pivot, I grabbed him by the arm and spun him around. He tells that story all the time. He can't get over the fact that I, a little bitty woman, could set a strapping 6'5" man back on his heels. A few years following that collaboration, Tyler placed another crown on my head when he asked me to become godmother to his son, Amon. You see, that child and me on the red carpet together, doing handstands with a nervous Tyler standing by, to be sure I don't crack my neck. What a joy. After speaking of godchildren, my cup runneth over with too many to name, though I will share and others who's filled me with pride. Years ago, I was walking down the street, minding my own business as I'm prone to do. This rather handsome young man approached me. "Good afternoon, Miss Tyson. My name is Denzel Washington," he said, flashing a wide grin. "Oh," I said, thinking, "I guess I'm supposed to know who he is?" "I was once in a movie with you," he said. I lifted my brows. "You were?" "Which one?" I asked, flipping through my mental Rolodex to recall which one. "Yes," he said, reminding me that we both played in the 1977 television film Wilma about iconic track sprinter Wilma Rudolph, who rose above physical handicaps to earn 3 gold medals in the 1960 Olympics. "I also met my wife on that film set," he told me. My conversation with Denzel that day flourished into decades-long friendship, one I hold dear. He and sweet Pauletta thought enough of me to name me godmother of their first daughter, Katya. How time flies. The little Katya I once bounced on my knee has now grown into an independent young woman, a Yale graduate who lent her production talents to films such as Django Unchained and Fences. What a treasure she is. She is as precious to me as Tyler's babe. One of my fondest Tyler memories came in December 2018. "Would you consider doing a role for just one day?" he asked. Of course, I told him, send me the script. I read it and immediately called him back with the question, when do we begin? Let me discuss it with your team, he told me. I later received word from my current manager, Larry Thompson, of the start date. When I arrived, Tyler's entourage escorted me through his fortress to a studio upstairs. I'm just about fainted when I rounded the corner. There, under a massive banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Cicely Tyson," the entire production crew had gathered to surprise me. The one-day role had been a ploy to get me down there, though I did end up playing Alice in A Fall from Grace, the script he'd sent me. His crew had wanted to scream, "Surprise!" when I came around that corner, but Tyler altered their plan. "We've got to be careful," he told his team. "She's over 90. We don't want her falling out." Even minus the shout, my heart toppled out of my chest. He got me good. That Tyler is a devil.